You watch those nature documentaries on the cable?
Yeah.
You see the one about lions?
Yeah.
Get this lion. He's the king of the jungle. Huge mane out there. He's laying down under a tree in the middle of Africa. He's so big. He's so hot. He doesn't want to move. Now, the little lion cubs, they start messing with him. Biting his tail, biting his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him, coming over, making trouble. Still, nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this, and they start to move in. The jackals, hyenas, they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer and bolder, till one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody, runs like the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass.
It's too late to be scared.
And I'm all out of
It's
bubble.
time to kill.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct, right here in the sumptuous SHR Media Studios, sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. 2 miles, veritably 2 miles from the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the capital of California, Sacramento, where at night the brimstone, the vapors of corruption and evil, sulfurous forms ooze up into the ether from that obsessively evil building. Belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Flackbait's going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, which says that for a limited time only, you can watch the show on the SHR Media Facebook page. You can watch the show on the SHR Media YouTube channel, and you can listen at shrmedia.com. You can chat at shrmedia.com. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the show. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your waitress. Holy moly. You know, every once in a while, you feel like talking about the inside baseball stuff, because sometimes inside baseball can be infinitely more enjoyable or entertaining or amusing than life can. You know, that funny stuff works out. Now, I'm not going to go into it right now because maybe in a day or so I can laugh about this, but right now it's not terribly fucking funny. Let's just say that for the past half hour, Sean Lewis and I, Sean being the co-owner of the SHR Media Network, have been actively engaged in conversation, texting and tweeting back and forth to each other, attempting to solve problems, let's say. We're problem-solving motherfuckers. So, there you go. I've got my bad words out at the beginning of the show, quarter in a hat. And before we go any further, because I haven't even had time to do this yet, Let's go into, if my confuser will allow me to, let's go into the SHR. Yeah, I'm going to shrmedia.com, which is where you should go if you want to listen to the program live. Just listen to the program live and engage in chat. And let's go over. It looks like we have a couple of people in chat already. Woohoo, we do, in fact. We got Mary Bachman, Mike, and Alan Thomas. Hey, Alan Thomas, great to see you here. Tonight, I have an arseload of articles. And you may ask yourself, why does BZ have an arseload of articles for you tonight? Well, it's because some odd things have been happening recently where I'm beginning to wonder if leftists, Democrats, the American media maggots, maybe just a bit of a glimmer of reality is starting to set in with them, because they seem to be changing their tunes just a bit. Now, I'm saying just a bit. I'm holding out a little bit of hope. I do have some happy stories for you tonight. Don't fret. Fear not. There's at least one happy story. And then we're going to talk a little bit later about Mueller. And we're going to talk about the FBI. And I'm sorry to say, get used to it. It's just going to be old BZ tonight, sitting in a chair with his fart arse, looking at you and being grateful that you're here tonight. Speaking of tonight is Tuesday. It's May 15th, the year of our Lord 2018, and I don't have any other guests. Let me just say this up front. Now, Sackheads Clint will not be available tomorrow night for Sackheads Against Tyranny, and I'm thinking of doing something special for Sackheads Against Tyranny tomorrow night. It'll be at least an hour, depending on if I can make some things work. Sackheads Sean may or may not be able to call in tomorrow night. If he does, that's great. If not, hey, I have other things to do. And then Thursday on the saloon, in the saloon, I should say, we're going to talk to Dan Butcher, he of High Plains Media fame, because me and Dan just kind of have a thing. And we like to riff off of each other and chat with each other, because it's not like there isn't anything happening in the media. And because it's so quiet. It's so quiet out there. There really isn't anything occurring. Bullshit. Okay. I have 5 articles that need to be read. And the reason I'm reading them is because I want you to understand that the times, and I'll let you know, I report or I read and you decide, but I'm going to let you decide if you think that what I'm positing here may in fact be starting to. I'm not saying that there's a massive chasm opening up and that leftists are coming to their senses. Oh, hell no. I won't be able to fit them into this show, but it's like article after article after article of leftists being so. Okay, here's one. I don't even have the story in front of me. I got 38 tabs set up over here on my confuser. But here's one that I just remember from memory. Some leftist woman thinks that I almost can't say this. Okay, you need to be sitting down. If you're not sitting down, then you need to have at least a fainting couch nearby when I tell you this. There's an allegedly educated leftist woman who is suggesting, okay, there we go, that's a better word, who is suggesting that you need to ask your infant permission to change his or her nappy. And that will create a much better environment between the two of you. You know, it's like rape or intercourse. There must be consent. So now leftists have logically taken it to the point where if there needs to be consent for that, well then, shouldn't we ask for consent to change your nappy for your baby. Your baby needs to be in on this decision, right? Your baby needs to be in on the damn decision. The baby needs to feel inclusive. This must be an inclusive environment these days for leftists. So there's nothing more inclusive than holding your baby and saying, okay, may I change your nappy now? How about if I change that? And of course, here's the strange part. Now, somehow you have to interpret assent. And what if you're a leftist, and because you're kind of a disbeliever, what if your baby, your infant, never gives you assent? What's a mother to do? Okay, enough of that crap. Here's a story. This is from the New York Times. A guy named Charles Blow. I won't even make a comment about that, okay? Stop. You just stop right there. I see what's going on in your head. Just kick it out. All right. And it goes like this. Trump isn't likely to be forced out. Oh, wait. If I had a producer. Jeez. If I had a producer, then the story would have gone and would have sounded something like this. By Charles Blow of the New York Times. Yes, the New York Times. Trump isn't likely to be forced out. Okay, but I don't have a producer, so that's not what you heard, nor is that what you are going to hear. Democrats. I have something to tell you that you may not want to hear, says Charles Blow. Donald Trump is probably not going to be removed from office by impeachment. Yes, Trump is wholly unqualified, lacking in morality and character, and may have been complicit in Russia's attempt to interfere with the 2016 election. But this is a country that has only impeached 2 presidents in 225 years, and both of them, Andrew Johnson in 1868 because he wanted to continue with Lincoln's proposed policy of leniency towards the South following the Civil War, and William Jefferson Clinton because he lied under oath. Both of them survived a Senate vote and remained in office. Even in cases of blatant presidential abuses of power, the public and the political class abhor impeachment. Now, if Democrats win the House in November, it's possible they'll impeach Trump, but in this hyper-partisan climate, a conviction by 67 votes in the Senate where Republicans are likely to remain a majority is all but impossible. Trump's widespread unpopularity, maybe I should do myself a favor, start to act a little bit like a producer and see if I can set things up here a little bit for myself, at least do myself a favor. Boy, thinking ahead, how unusual. BZ, let's not make a habit of this. Anyway, if Democrats win the House in November, it's possible they'll impeach Trump. In this hyper-partisan climate, a conviction by 67 votes in the Senate where Republicans are likely to remain a majority is all but impossible. Trump's widespread unpopularity, nearly 60% of Americans disapprove of his performance, does give Democrats a major opportunity this November to fundamentally transform the topography of the political landscape, giving them the ability to block Trump's agenda until the next presidential election. But they will be disappointed. Listen to this. Oh, it gives chills. I'm getting chills now. But they will be disappointed if they define success by Trump's removal. Case number 2 right here. Oh, and this one is authored by Willie Brown. If you've been in California, you know exactly who Willie Brown is. Let's just say that he's a black Democrat who leans left, and then if you want to lean left, he can lean even further left. He's a big political player, still at the age, I think he's either in his late 70s or even his early 80s now. But Willie Brown had and has a ton of power in this state. Here's an article by Willie Brown. Trump is more popular than Dems want to think. Okay, if I had a producer. It's time for the Democrats to stop bashing President Trump. It's not going to be easy given his policies and personality. It might even mean checking into a 12-step program, but setting A winning agenda is like maneuvering an aircraft carrier. It takes time to change course. And if they want to be on target for the November midterm elections, the Democrats need to start changing course now. Like it or not, a significant number of Americans are actually happy these days. Did I just... Oh, yeah, I actually heard Willie Brown there in his voice say and admit a significant number of Americans are actually happy these days. He admits they are making money. He admits they feel safe. And he admits they agree with the president's protectionist trade policies, his call for more American jobs, even his immigration stance. The job growth reports, the North Korea summit, and the steady economy are beating out all the Stormy Daniels scandal and the Robert Mueller investigation. In Middle America, hands down. I shit thee not. This is Willie Brown writing this stuff. I ain't making it up. So you are not going to win back the House by making it all about him, meaning Trump. Rather than stoking the base by attacking Trump, Democrats need to come up with a platform that addresses the average voter's hopes and concerns, not just the needs of underdogs or whatever cause happens to be the media flavor of the week. Democrats need to look like the adults, not like another pack of screaming kids on the playground. The intimation here being that Willie Brown thinks that the Democrats are looking like another pack of screaming kids on the playground. And they need to start now. Besides, when it comes to bashing Trump, Donald is doing just fine on his own. You know, I'll tell you what, in certain circumstances, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. However, that having been said, right, Donald Trump can frequently be his worst enemy. But you know what? I have been disabused by leftism to the point where I am generally now a results-oriented kind of guy. I am a conservatarian, but moreover, day by day, week by week, month by month, show me the results. And I got to admit, Donald Trump is showing me the results. I got to go necessarily not by what he says, but by what he does. And then there's this article. This is by Gerard Alexander. And it came out 2 days ago. And he is a professor of political science at the University of Virginia. Keep that in mind as I'm reading this, because his article is, you know what? Liberals, you're not as smart as you think. Whoa, again, I'm getting creepy. Willie's just reading this stuff. I know many liberals, and two of them really are my best friends. Liberals make good movies and television shows. Their idealism has been an inspiration for me and for many others. Many liberals are very smart, but they're not as smart or persuasive as they think. And a backlash against liberals, a backlash that most liberals don't seem to realize they're causing, is going to get President Trump reelected. Going to get President Trump reelected. Wow. Startling. People often vote against things instead of voting for them, against ideas, candidates, and parties. Democrats, like Republicans, appreciate this whenever they portray their opponents as negatively as possible. But members of political tribes seem to have trouble recognizing that they, too, can push people away and energize them to vote for the other side, like what happened to Donald John Trump. And now that, folks, I'm suggesting, guess what? That also occurred to the GOP in 2016. Nowhere is this more on display today than in the liberal control of the commanding heights of American culture. Take the past few weeks. At the White House Correspondents Association dinner in Washington, the comedian, I use that term loosely myself, I'm just reading it, this is what he wrote. The comedian, loosely, Michelle Wolf, landed some punchlines that were funny and some that weren't, but people reacted less to her talent and more to the liberal politics that she personified. For every viewer who loved her Trump bashing, there seemed to be at least one other put off by the one-sidedness of her routine. Then, when Kanye West publicly rethought his ideological commitments, prominent liberals criticized him for speaking on the topic at all. Maxine Waters, who I will have a glorious audio cut for you in the future, a Democrat congresswoman from California, remarked that sometimes Kanye West talks out of turn and should maybe not have so much to say because he's not carrying the party water. Oh, he's black. Now, this is just an aside. This is old BZ pontificating. He's black. He needs to stay the hell in line. Liberals dominate the entertainment industry, many of the most influential news sources in America's universities. This means that people with progressive leanings are everywhere in the public eye and also on the college campuses, attended by many people's children or grandkids. These platforms come with a lot of power to express values, confer credibility and celebrity, and start national conversations that others really cannot ignore. But this makes liberals feel more powerful than they are. Or more accurately, this kind of power is double-edged. Liberals often don't realize how provocative or inflammatory they can be in exercising their power. They regularly not only persuade and attract, but also annoy and repel. Bingo. In fact, liberals may be more effective. Oh, I can't believe I'm reading this. In fact, liberals may be more effective at causing resentment than in getting people to come to their way. I'm not talking about the possibility that jokes at the 2011 Correspondents Association dinner may have pushed Mr. Trump to run for president to begin with. I mean that the army of comedy that Michael Moore thought would bring Mr. Trump down will instead be what builds him up in the minds of millions of voters. If you're looking at me on YouTube or Facebook, you'll see a finger pointing back towards myself as well. Consider some ways liberals have used their cultural prominence in recent years. They've rightly become more sensitive to racism and sexism in American society. News reports, academic commentary, and movies now regularly relate accounts of racism in American history and condemn racial bigotry. These exercises in consciousness raising and criticism have surely nudged some Americans to rethink their views and to reflect more deeply on the status and experience of women and members of minority groups in this country. But accusers can paint with very wide brushes. Racist is pretty much the most damning label that can be slapped on anyone in America today, which means it should be applied firmly and carefully. Yet some people have cavalierly leveled the charge against huge numbers of Americans, specifically the more than 60 million people who voted for Mr. Trump. In their ranks are people who sincerely consider themselves not bigoted, who might be open to reconsidering ways they have done things for years, but are likely to be put off if they feel smeared before that conversation even takes place. It doesn't help that our cultural mores are changing rapidly, and we rarely stop to consider this. Some liberals have gotten far out ahead of their fellow Americans, but are nonetheless quick to criticize those who haven't caught up with them. Think about that sentence just for a bit in your brain housing group. And then there's another what I consider to be a very important insight in terms of leftists, and this guy is acquiescing quite a bit. Within just a few years, many liberals went from starting to talk about microaggressions to suggesting that it is racist even to question whether microaggressions are that important. Gender identity disorder was considered a form of mental illness until recently, but today anyone hesitant about transgender women using the ladies' room is labeled a bigot. Liberals denounce cultural appropriation without, in many cases, doing the work of persuading people that there is anything wrong with, say, a teenager not of Chinese descent wearing a Chinese-style dress to prom or eating at a burrito cart run by two non-Latino women. Again, I read this stuff to let you know we have to understand how it is that leftists think. And again, as I say, this guy is acquiescing that leftists have a problem. That's the point of this show, is that things may be changing just a little bit, but fundamentally, philosophically, you have to ask the question, are they really changing? And if so, how much? And moreover, why? Pressing a political view from the Oscar stage, declaring a conservative campus speaker unacceptable, flatly categorizing huge segments of the country as misguided, these reveal a tremendous intellectual and moral self-confidence that smacks of superiority. Do you think? It's one thing to police your own language and a very different one to police other people's. The former can set an example. The latter is domineering. Are you semi-gobsmacked that there's a leftist actually writing this? A professor in a university actually writing something like this? This judgmental tendency became stronger during the administration of President Barack Obama. Captain Obvious is sitting over there in the corner right now. He's kind of guffawing as I'm reading this. Though not necessarily because of anything Mr. Obama did. Feeling increasingly emboldened, liberals were more convinced than ever that conservatives were their intellectual and even moral inferiors. Point made. Very important. Discourses and theories once confined to academia were transmitted into workaday liberal political thinking, and college campuses, which many take to be a world run by liberals would look like, seemed increasingly intolerant of free inquiry. Okay. That's time for one of these. Astounding that this guy's writing this, but wait, there's more. It was during these years that the University of California included a phrase, America is the land of opportunity, on a list of discouraged microaggressions. America is the land of opportunity. This is a discouraged microaggression. Let that sink in. Liberal politicians portrayed conservative positions on immigration reform as presumptively racist. Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader, once dubiously claimed that she had heard Republicans tell Irish visitors that if it was you, then immigration reform would be easy. When Mr. Obama remarked behind closed doors during the presidential campaign in 2008 that Rust Belt voters get bitter, they cling to guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them, it mattered not so much because he said it, but because so many listeners figured he was only saying what liberals were really thinking. Stop. I'm going afield just for a moment. Yeah, that's exactly what liberals were really thinking about you. These are the sorts of events conservatives think of when they sometimes say Obama caused Trump. Truism. Many liberals might interpret that phrase to mean that America's first black president brought out the worst in some people. True. In this view, not only might liberals be unable to avoid provoking bigots, it's not clear they should even try. After all, should they not have nominated and elected Mr. Obama? Should they regret doing the right thing just because it provoked the worst instincts in some people? Actually, these are all pretty good questions. And we're going to continue on. Let's see, what do I have? I got about 2 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. And, you know, if you watched last show, I don't know, there was kind of an issue with taking a break at the bottom and top of the hour. This is a limited view of the situation. Even if liberals think their opponents are backward, they don't have to gratuitously drive people away, including voters who cast ballots once or more, or even... BZ, dude, that was Freudian, because that's not what was in the article. Let me read it again, and then you'll understand. Even if liberals think their opponents are backwards, they don't have to gratuitously drive people away, including voters who cast ballots once, or even twice, for Mr. Obama before supporting Mr. Trump in 2016. Champions of inclusion can watch what they say and explain what they're doing without presuming to regulate what words come out of other people's mouths. Campus activists can allow even visitors to speak and then, after an event, hold a teach-in discussing what they disagree with. After the Supreme Court ruled in 2015 that states had to allow same-sex marriage, the fight in some quarters turned to pizza places unwilling to cater such weddings. Maybe don't pick that fight? People determined to stand against racism can raise concerns about groups that espouse hate and problems like the racial achievement gap in schools without smearing huge numbers of Americans, many of whom might otherwise be Democrats by temperament. And don't you suspect that I'm just saying, I believe there's a little wee bit of presumption in here. But that's why I'm reading it to you, so you can understand that even when acquiescing, are they really? Liberals can act as if they're not so certain and maybe actually not be so certain. that bigotry motivates people who disagree with them on issues like immigration. Without sacrificing their principles, liberals can come across as more respectful of others. Self-righteousness is rarely attractive and even more rarely rewarded. Self-righteousness can also get things wrong, especially with the possibility of Mr. Trump's re-election. Many liberals seem primed to write off nearly half the country as irredeemable. Admittedly, the president doesn't make it easy. As a candidate, Mr. Trump made derogatory comments about Mexicans, which were factually accurate because he didn't lump every Mexican. But that's not the meme they want you to know. And as president, described some African countries with a vulgar epithet. Let me remind you, shithole. Well, many African countries are a shithole. And let me make this observation. The state in which I sit right now, and certainly downtown California, is a shithole. By the way, the picture that I use for, this is an aside that I'm going to, no, I'm not. I don't have the time. I'm going to have to take a break and then tell you about the picture that was sent to me by a particular individual that I am now using for a promotional piece behind the Sackheads against tyranny, which will be on tomorrow night. We're going to come right back. We're going to consider and we're going to wrap up this article from a professor in Virginia. And then I have a couple more examples that are certainly worth your time in reading. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight, listening to and watching myself, the Bloviating Zeppelin, right here, live and direct, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the Bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice, Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know, I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show live and direct on the SHR Media Network, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. As Sackheads Against Tyranny, I say, we're in Sacramento, Fornicalia. And I was going to tell you a little story about the photograph that was sent to me that I have been using for Sackheads Against Tyranny promos. And that's this. There's a wonderful picture of a white guy, completely naked, at 10th Street, the corner of 10th, and I can't tell what the intersection is, but it's in downtown Sacramento because I recognize the buildings. And he's got his arse towards the camera, bright white, orange sort of arse, and he's taking a dump right on the sidewalk in what I now call Sacramento, Fornicalia. And now you know why. Now you know why. And I was talking about the reference that this particular author was making to describing some African countries with a vulgar epithet. But it is an unjustified leap to conclude that anyone who supports him in any way is racist, just as it would be a leap to say anyone who supported Hillary Clinton was racist because she once made veiled references to super predators. Well, come on, she's not going to be held to account for that, nor was she ever. Liberals are inadvertently making that outcome more likely. It's not too late to stop. That's the point. Okay, grok this concept. This is the point. It's not necessarily that he's admitting that these things are occurring, but what he's saying is, in order to win, because winning is everything, that's why you need to stop this stuff, not because it's right to stop it, or because it's accurate that these things are happening at the behest of leftists. No, fuck that. That's not the point. The point is just to win. And so again, this guy's name is Gerard Alexander. He's an associate professor of politics at the University of Virginia. Now here's an article by Lee Habib. This guy is, he's a conservative guy anyway, but damn him for making some very logical, and drawing some, I should say, some logical conclusions. Okay, Whiskey Dale says, yeah, quarter in a jar. I forgot that one. Okay, no, I didn't really forget that one. But I do, you're right. I do have to put a quarter in a jar. This is an article by Lee Habib. America's real racism? Ignoring the senseless killing of our black fatherless boys. If you weren't paying close attention, you wouldn't have noticed the scant press coverage about the shooting spree in Chicago. As Chicago weather warms, 84 people shot in the nation's third largest city in a week. Read the headlines from the local NBC affiliate website. 9, by the way, just happened to be fatalities. There were more than 1,400 homicides in Chicago in 2016 and 2017. And though there had been some success in the past several months of lowering those numbers, it turns out that much of it may have been due to cold weather. Chicago endured one of the coldest Aprils on record. Once the weather broke, so did a spasm of violence. Here's just a sampling of the stories that you didn't hear or see. On May 5th, a 12-year-old boy was shot in the stomach in an East Garfield neighborhood, guilty of nothing but being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Police said it happened after a man pulled out a gun after arguing with a woman and fired into a crowd. A local TV reporter said. On the same night, a shooting near Mount Sinai Hospital left 2 women injured and forced the hospital to go into a lockdown. Nothing like closing the very place that you're going to need to go in Chicago. Oh, wait, there was more. Several of the incidents, including a drive-by shooting late Friday in which a 41-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy were wounded, appeared to be gang-related. The local TV website reported in 2 separate shootings Saturday morning on the west side, a 26-year-old man and a 25-year-old man, who police said are documented gang members, were shot. The 25-year-old, who was shot multiple times as he rode a bike, was rushed to a nearby hospital. Luckily, that one was open and listed in critical condition, police said, and more. In the latest homicide, a 35-year-old man was mortally wounded late Sunday near his right armpit. Is that the corner of right armpit and trash can? I'm not sure. The report continued. Police did not detail the circumstances of the man's death, but according to police records, he was shot in the same area that has seen 5 shooting incidents in the last week, and more. Early Sunday morning, 2 men, ages 22 and 24, is starting to see a little bit of a pattern here, were wounded as they walked out of a building on the same block where the 12-year-old boy was shot just a few hours earlier. These 2 incidents happened about 2 blocks away from the site of another homicide. You didn't hear about any of these shootings, even though more black men and women were shot this past week in Chicago than in the last few mass school shootings combined. In Chicago, it's Parkland every week. Lee Habib wrote that. In Chicago, it's Parkland every week. But the media hasn't turned their frenzy of shootings into a round-the-clock marathon like they did with Parkland. Schools across America aren't organizing mass protests on behalf of all the young black men and women shot and killed in the past 2 years here in the windy city of Chicago. The Chicago Tribune's Red Eye website used to track the names. If this isn't insight, I don't know what is. The Chicago Tribune's Red Eye website used to track the names of the men and women shot and killed in Chicago. They stopped back in 2015. The body count didn't. That says a lot about the press in Chicago, don't you surmise? You don't know the names of the thousands of inner-city men and women gunned down in Chicago because the media only seems to care about the death of black men when the person doing the killing is wearing a blue uniform. Michael Brown, Terrence Crutcher, Philandro Castile, Alton Sterling, and Tamir Rice. Americans know those names. They should. But Americans know none of the thousands of innocent young black men and women killed by other black men in our nation's 3rd largest city. And across America, there's a reason. A young black male's life is not worth reporting when it is taken by another black male. That's the real racism that prevails in America's newsrooms, the marginalization of black urban life. I'm going to insert this right here, and trust me, I am giving you no credit, Lee Habib, for writing or saying this. But BZ will say this, because I've said it for quite some time, and I don't mind saying it now. Here's the deal to black males and the black culture, if you will, because what other word would there be for it? Myself and other people, not striated by race, we will start respecting you when you respect yourselves. Period. And there's a reason you don't know the names of all those black victims, because the media doesn't much like the narrative. Journalists and activists can't blame the deaths on assault-style weapons like the AR-15 or the National Rifle Association. It is handguns that are the weapon of choice in most of these shootings, and Chicago already has some very strict gun control laws, actually some of the strictest in the nation, Lee. You don't know the names because the problems seem so intractable in Chicago. Poor schools, poor employment opportunities, and poor choices led by a poverty of options that are just some of the problems. And last, far too many journalists aren't interested in getting at the primary cause of much of the senseless gun violence in America: fatherlessness. That's right, fatherlessness. About 20,000 people live in my hometown of Oxford, Mississippi, and there are probably as many guns, but I can't remember the last murder spree in the local paper. That's because my town has lots of guns, but lots of fathers too. Indeed, if one were to look at the locations in America where the most violent crime occurs, those places will likely include high rates of fatherlessness as a feature. The fact is, Chicago has a gun problem because it has father problems, and gun control isn't the remedy. Self-control is. When boys don't have fathers, they have no one to teach them how to channel their masculine impulses in positive ways. Without fathers, young men seek out masculine love and acceptance wherever they can find it. Tragically, they find that acceptance and belonging in gangs, and that's been that way for years and years and years. I dealt with it when I was in law enforcement for 41 years, directly. Ask any teacher, probation officer, social worker, or pastor, and they'll tell you fathers matter. The vast empirical evidence is in. When young people finish school, they get married and then they have kids, and in that order, they are far less likely to end up as a statistic, a cooling body on the ground, far less likely to be victims of sexual abuse and crime, far less likely to be poor. But so little is written about what is known as the sequence, and not nearly enough is being done to promote the message, which should be plastered everywhere and reinforced at every turn in American life. Marriage changes everything. Love changes everything. This much I know. If some boys tried to form a gang in our town, we fathers wouldn't bother calling the local sheriff. The young men would soon find themselves up against a gang of fathers who would quickly restore order to their streets. And that's the way it has historically been for many, many decades in America. Not now. Back in 1999, William Raspberry, the late African-American Washington Post columnist, wrote The Elephant's Tale, a column on inner-city black fatherlessness. He told the story about game managers at Kruger National Park who were experiencing problems with an elephant herd. The park was growing too fast, and some experts decided to move some of the herd to another park and killed some of the other elephants that were too big to move. The decision had unintended consequences, as do many of the decisions. This is BZ editorializing now, as do many of the consequences, unintended consequences of what leftists do and believe. Back to the article. Years later, some of the younger relocated elephants started attacking a herd of white rhinos, which was at that time already an endangered species. Raspberry, a Pulitzer Prize winner, told the story of that wild band of young elephants. The elephants used their trunks to throw sticks at the rhinos, chased them over long hours and great distances, and stomped to death a tenth of the herd, all for no discernible reason. Park managers decided they had no choice but to kill some of the worst juvenile offenders. They had killed 5 of them when someone came up with another bright idea. Bring in some of the mature males from Kruger and hope that the bigger, stronger males could bring the adolescents under control. To the delight of the park officials, it worked. The big bulls, quickly establishing the natural hierarchy, became the dominant sexual partners of the females, and the reduction in sexual activity among the juveniles lowered soaring testosterone levels and reduced their violent behavior. The new discipline, it turned out, was not just a matter of size intimidation. The young bulls actually started following their big daddies around, yielding to their authority, and learning from them proper elephant conduct. The assault on the white rhinos ended abruptly. Fathers matter, Raspberry concluded. And though any young man can get along without the presence of a father, it is much harder for young men to succeed when entire communities are without fathers. Why won't the media focus on this epidemic of fatherlessness? Some journalists and commentators have sounded the alarm, but not enough. Almost 50 years ago, when the 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed, the national out-of-wedlock birth rate was 7%. Today, it is over 40%, wrote Juan Williams in the Wall Street Journal in 2013. According to the CDC, the out-of-wedlock birth rate for white children was just 2% in the 1960s. Today, it is 30%. Among black children, the out-of-wedlock birth rate has skyrocketed from 20% in the 1960s to a heartbreaking 72% today. This epidemic is killing too many Americans and ruining the quality of life for many more. Take Maria Cole, 26, who lives with her 5-year-old daughter in a tough Chicago neighborhood surrounded by gang violence. She told a local reporter that she refuses to let her little girl play outdoors at the park nearby because it's been overtaken by gambling, drinking, and occasional shootings. In August, her brother and cousin were wounded in a shooting on the block while the family, including her daughter, were gathered near their car. A truck slowed and someone fired shots, killing her cousin. She said her brother survived. She hit the deck and looked at me like, "Are you okay?" Cole told a local reporter about finding her daughter, then for lying on the ground. It's just the reality we live in. That reality, the scene which plays out in too many neighborhoods across America, needs more coverage by the media. And the consequences of neighborhoods without marriage needs to be covered too. It's a national health emergency. Just ask Maria Cole. I have one more story. Is there too much truth in these? Is that why they're not being covered? I know they go against a meme. I know they go against the talking points that many people like to refer to way too many times. Here's an article by a guy named Damon Linker. He happens, he's not a conservative by any means whatsoever, at all. And just the title itself of the article is enough to shock. The white minority illusion. Uh-oh. If I had a producer... Okay, but I don't have a producer. Let's do that again, because I need a producer. Anybody willing to produce for old BZ, just let me know. The white minority illusion. Thank you. It's always better the second time around. Not. By Damon Linker. If there's one thing that sustained liberals throughout the trials of the 2016 election and its aftermath, it's faith that demography will come to their rescue to ensure that they eventually prevail against the right-wing racist populism of the Trump-era Republican Party. That assumption, which originated with the emerging Democratic majority thesis of the early 2000s, has animated 1,000 tweets and undergirded an untold number of think pieces over the year and a half. The most recent is Ezra Klein's erudite reckoning that just how much President Trump's toxic racism and xenophobia diverges from the American norm. Klein's conclusion from a perusal of American history is not much. The United States has never been especially liberal or democratic for non-whites, and Trump represents the last gasp of those in American life who would like to keep it that way. It's likely to be their last gasp because, as Klein writes, if current demographic projections hold, we will be a majority-minority nation in less than 30 years. Right?
You're a loony.
Not so much. Once that happens, the country's formerly white majority will have no choice but to reconcile itself to a changed demographic reality, and that will hopefully allow historians of the future to look back at our moment to conclude that what seemed like a potentially dire threat to liberal democracy in America during the Trump administration was merely the turbulence that has always accompanied racial progress in this country. It sounds reassuring. But is it true? And he writes, don't bet on it. Yes, the U.S. is on track to become at some point around 2045 a minority white nation, in the sense that if we lump every person who isn't white into a single demographic category of non-white, whites will be outnumbered. The problem is no such political homogeneous category of citizen exists in the real world. It's the creation of demographers and liberal data journalists eager to mollify their anxieties. Such people convince themselves of its reality by making a habit of talking about how people of color are uniformly oppressed by hegemonic whiteness in the United States. But the truth is that people of Hispanic, African, West Indian, East Asian, South Asian, and Arab descent don't perceive themselves as, or vote as if they are, members of a unified bloc. They are discrete groups. Most of them do lean Democratic, but not uniformly, and they do so for disparate reasons rooted in the cultures that brought with them to this country and in their distinct histories since arriving. That's true of white voters, too, of course. Now, as critics have pointed out, it's most likely misleading or even to suggest that these ethnic categories will remain stable over the coming decades, giving rise of intermarriage among the members of each group. But even if we assume that, for the sake of analysis, the categories remain intact, it's important to recognize that white is going to remain the plurality group for a very long time to come. In 2045, when the shift to, quote, minority white country is supposed to happen, whites will be 49.8% of the population, with Hispanics at 24.6%, the next largest group at roughly half the size. That's not the portrait of a country in which demographics are going to deliver liberals an automatic and permanent victory. Listen to what he's writing. It's the portrait of a country in which politics will continue as it always has, with different parties and politicians jostling for the support of a range of different groups, unless, that is, liberals can convince the non-white members of their current electoral coalition to begin thinking of themselves first and foremost as, quote, people of color, unquote, united by their antipathy to and in their oppression by white America. Bazingo! Now you see the buttery goodness edged up with the trowel out of this article. If racism is defined in part by the tendency of whites to view everyone but themselves as not white, then this would be a form of counter-racism in which non-whites positively affirm as a politically potent identity that was once treated as a form of a stigma. The doubling down of identity politics among liberals since Donald Trump's election follows from something like this ambition to unify non-whites against the Republican Party and in favor of the Democrats. At the same time, the left's growing emphasis on intersectionality, which sows division instead of unity by highlighting the distinctive, irreducible grievances suffered by the members of those ever narrower demographic subcategories, adds a heavy dose of self-contradiction to the project. It would appear that the emerging Democratic majority requires anti-white identity politics as its midwife. Listen up. That's why I read these articles. And I want you to hear the whole thing because you have to understand what leftists and what many people are writing today in today's journalism. That would be inadvisable in civic terms, even if demographic trends over the next half century favored non-whites more convincingly than they do. As it is, liberals risk actively antagonizing and hence galvanizing against them what will remain for some significant time to come the single largest demographic group in the United States. There may be more foolish electoral strategies out there, but I'm hard-pressed to think of one, he concludes. And my, how the first hour has flown by. Now we're going to get to some politics, but the reason I wanted to take this entire first hour, and God bless and thank the SHR Media Network for allowing me to take this amount of time to go into this great a depth and bring you information and articles and a response about what's actually happening here in our country, my country, your country. Most other places don't have the time to go in depth, sufficiently in depth, like this. And that's why I thank the SHR Media Network for allowing me the time and the ability to do that and to hijack their air, which I have most certainly done, and I happen to do every Tuesday and Thursday. 'Cause until my factory-issued heart attack comes, I'm going to continue to be here every Tuesday and Thursday on the SHR Media Network. You came for politics. You came for BZ. I think there's going to be more politics coming up. We're going to talk about Mueller. And we're going to talk about the FBI. And have I got some glorious audio cuts for you? Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yeah. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and Insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I could say it, but it gets a little tedious. I love this. I love this music. Cha-cha-cha. We're back. I'm back, you're back, we're all back. I've got a big back. My back looks like a topographic map of the moon. You can't say that, can you? No. Anyway, I have one more article that we're going to talk about in terms of, where are we right now? I went through this one, didn't I? I did. And I didn't, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure that I insisted that we're going to have some happy stories tonight. Wait, did I insist on that?
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Well, apparently I did. Here's a good happy story. Exclusive. Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, who tipped off illegal aliens to ICE sweep, faces a lawsuit. Okay, I guess that's not funny if you're part of her family. To me, however, it is really fucking family. Funny. Okay, quarter and a hat. The Immigration Reform Law Institute, IRLI, will file a lawsuit Monday, well, it did Monday, this past Monday, seeking to force Oakland, California to produce documents related to its mayor, Libby Schaaf's decision to tip off illegal aliens to a major enforcement action in February, IRLI Executive Director Dave Wilcox revealed for the first time on the Breitbart News Sunday show. We're tired of these states and local jurisdictions who are thumbing their nose at our duly enacted immigration laws, Wilcox told Breitbart News deputy political editor Amanda House. In February, now this is why, in February, a San Francisco Bay-wide operation by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the dudes known as ICE, aimed at criminal illegal aliens, netted 232 apprehensions, including 115 with serious criminal records, but according to ICE Director Thomas Homan, more than 800 others escaped after Libby Schaaf broke the secrecy of the action explicitly in order to protect illegals from discovery. Now stop, I just happen to know this off the top of my head. There is an Alioto running for mayor in San Francisco. Now, if you know anything about San Francisco, most won't, because most people are either in the Midwest or they live on the East Coast. Very few of my listeners are in California, or I wonder why. BZ, why are so few of your listeners in California? Well, I think you have a pretty good idea why that might be, but the Aliotos have been a San Francisco family with power for generations. Well, there's an Alioto, a female Alioto, whose first name I can't remember now, who's running for mayor. And what she's actually deigning to have the temerity to say is she's going to rescind a portion of the sanctuary city policy that she helped write in the 1990s, because since that policy, it's been amended to now Sanctuary City, San Francisco, means that they want everybody to escape scot-free. But that also includes felons, convicted felons, people with serious felony warrants, violent felonies, and they fall into the category of, oh, you go away too. We're not going to keep you. She actually wants to change that serious felon part, and she's retaining an assload of crack and crap for saying that she wants to do away with that maybe we should reconsider deporting illegals who are guilty of felonies, serious felonies, violent felonies. And for that, oh, is she excoriated these days. Now, will she win in San Francisco? Time will tell. It's, after all, San Francisco. Here's another story. And I'm going to get around to the fact that it's a good story that falls under the happy stories aegis. But initially, perhaps not so much. The article is by a guy named Ken Dilanian. And you can tell how he leans by the tenor of the article. Democrats' rights advocates are close to losing the battle over torture, by Ken Dilanian. Gina Haspel seems likely to be confirmed as CIA director without apologizing for the torture of terror suspects during the Bush administration. Gina Haspel, a career CIA operative, great. Trust me when I speak to other folks in another alphabet agency that says that a lot of the people in the CIA are really good to see. They're happy to see, I should say, a person rising from their ranks to become potentially CIA director. She's a career CIA operative who was running the base at the time, told senators this week that the CIA on her watch would never brutalize prisoners. But she didn't discuss the torture of al-Nashiri, and she declined over and over again to pass any moral or policy judgment on a CIA program that many people view as a significant departure from American values. Stop. Who came to that conclusion? Oh, that's right. Barack Hussein Obama's DOJ came to that conclusion. I believe CIA did extraordinary work to prevent another attack with the legal tools that we were provided, Haspel responded when asked repeatedly by Senator Kamala Harris, a California senator, right, Democrat, whether she believed the coercive techniques were immoral. And I'm going to ask you guys a question here in just a moment. Haspel, lauded by Republicans and revered by many who worked with her at the CIA, appears likely to be confirmed by the Senate. If that happens, it will mark a major defeat for Democrats, human rights groups, and others who have for years sought to pursue a moral reckoning over the CIA's use of torture during the George W. Bush administration. The defeat would not be that Haspel was confirmed, said Stephen Vladeck, a liberal law professor at the University of Texas who specializes in national security. The defeat would be her confirmation despite or perhaps because of her utter unwillingness to reckon with the CIA's sordid past. You know, the sordid past, he writes, that includes standing up for the United States, making it everyone's top priority while they live within its borders, important things like that, BZ added. Many people, including those who opposed the CIA's harsh interrogation, support Haspel's confirmation on the grounds that she is a well-qualified career spy who could stand up to the president, who has expressed doubt about his own intelligence agencies because he, like we've been disabused of the notion that any of the alphabet agencies, as it's been revealed day by day, week by week, month by month, that any of them are even remotely fucking apolitical or unbiased because we're discovering, completely political and biased. Congressional officials tracking the confirmation say Haspel is likely to get enough support to win a simple majority vote, which is all it would take to make her the first female CIA director. Well, you want to hear the happy story? I'm sure you do. Because I heard it on the way over here. She's going to get confirmed. That's a happy story. And she's going to get confirmed because, by the way, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Democrats came around to her confirmation. 7 Democrats. But let's see, on the GOP side, let's think here just for a moment. Who disagrees with that and who will not confirm her? Oh, that's right. I remember now. That would be John McCain and Rand Paul. So blow it out your butts, you two. She's going to get confirmed. I zip around Twitter quite frequently, and I have my little Twitter rants and wars and whatnot. By the way, if you go to my Twitter feed, at BZEP, B-Z-E-P, you're going to find a link in there if you go to some of my recent timeline stuff. If you want to find out if you've been shadow banned, there is a website you can go to. Click on that link. Maybe I should call it a clink, because you're clicking on the link. Clink on that. I just started a new term. Maybe I'll have to kind of throw it around the world. Clink on that, and you'll be able to find out if you perhaps have been shadow banned on Twitter. I find it kind of an interesting link. Having said that, I was on Twitter today, and because we know, as I just said, that the alphabet agencies are completely apolitical and they are unbiased, here's a tweet that came out, let's see, I believe, today at 6:14 a.m. by John Brennan. John O. Brennan, I should say. I want to stipulate the O, very important. John Brennan, former CIA director, not DNI, no, that's James Clapper. Former CIA director John Brennan says, and I knew this was coming. I just didn't see that guilt for this was going to be laid at the step of Donald Trump by this guy, although I shouldn't be shocked. You all know that now the United States has an embassy in the town of Jerusalem, and that Israel itself gets to determine where these are going to be and what their capital is. And generally, embassies, they're best served when other nations have them in the capital, because that's where the business is conducted, right? Only makes sense. Well, because Donald John Trump decided that, we are going to have our embassy in Jerusalem, in Israel. Of course, there's been some terrible violence and protests, and now John Brennan has come out with this tweet. Deaths in Gaza result of utter disregard of Mr. Trump and Netanyahu for Palestinian rights and homeland. So, all along, do you think John Brennan's insistence on Palestinian rights, by the way, avowed enemies of the United States, avowed enemies of Israel, and now you see, do you think that any of John's predilections or biases could have influenced anything during his term as CIA director? Oh, perish the thought. No, he's just now coming out with this stuff. Bullshit. Deaths in Gaza result of utter disregard of Mr. Trump and Netanyahu for Palestinian rights and homeland. By moving embassy to Jerusalem, Trump played politics, destroyed U.S. peacemaker role. You fucktard, you couldn't have gotten this more wrong. New generation of Israelis, Palestinians need to isolate extremists to find a path to peace. Here's the only path to peace that Palestinians and the rest of the Middle East will tolerate. The complete elimination of Israel as a state occupied by Jews. Period. Doesn't seem too terribly difficult to comprehend that. Even Captain Obvious over there in the corner behind the Bobcat. Thank you, Whiskey Dale, again for the Bobcat. You'll be seeing more social things coming out with the Bobcat and myself in the future. But even Captain Obvious over there is nodding his head up and down. Yeah, the Palestinians and Muslims in the Middle East really do want to eliminate Israel, and the Jews within them wholesale. Dead. Period. So that's a happy story, because now we know Gina Haspel is going to get confirmed. And yet we have more evidence, continuing evidence of the fact that all these alphabet agencies, the moment that they begin to scream to you that they're apolitical and unbiased, and the American media maggots continue to insist, oh, well, that's true too, they're completely unbiased and apolitical, then all the bells and klaxons ought to be going off in your wheelhouse saying that, I sense this is a bullshit alert, and take it presumptively. I found this on Twitter too. Here's, let's see, I think this is a 15-second cut by a guy named Pat Davis, who's running for Congress out of New Mexico. And he's not an NRA fan at all. And when I tell you this, what you're going to hear is his official 15 to 16 second advertisement. This is his promo for him. This is what he is sure is gonna work. It's gonna grab you and make you want to vote for him. So this isn't something that he just decided to come up with out of left field. Ding. Oh, wait, I do actually have that. Out of left field. But this is something that he's decided, this is surefire, and this crap is going to work with this exact verbiage. Take it away.
Fuck the NRA. Their pro-gun policies have resulted in dead children, dead mothers, and dead fathers. I'm Pat Davis, and I approve this message, because if Congress won't change our gun laws, we're changing Congress.
And guess what, Pat Davis? We're going to be changing you. Like a bad diaper, dude. So if you think that fuck the NRA is going to be a real, that's a feather in your cap, Pat Davis in New Mexico, I'm not sure that one could really consider that a winning strategy. Now we're going to shift gears. We're going to talk and ask if a guy by the name of little Bobby Mueller, not Mueller, Mueller, it's written M-U-E-L-L-E-R, if Mueller has actually reached a plateau, because things seem to be, the winds, they seem to be changing. So I have to ask, has Robert Mueller reached his plateau? Two rather surprising pieces of news emerged this past week regarding special counsel Robert Mueller and his team of Trump phishing expeditionists, as I call them. And in case you failed to notice, yesterday, Monday, was the 1-year anniversary of the multi-million-dollar, $20 million special counsel appointment by the Mueller phishing company. And let's see, first this from FoxNews.com. Federal judge accuses Mueller's team of lying trying to target Trump. Come on, man! A federal judge on Friday, past Friday, harshly rebuked special counsel Robert Mueller's team during a hearing for ex-Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, suggesting that they lied about the scope of the investigation. He's seeking unfettered, that they lied and that they're seeking unfettered power and are more interested in bringing down the president. And if you thought that was glorious, I mean, like, dude, you ain't seen nothing yet. Listen to this.
For the reaction, our two esteemed attorneys, Scott Bolden joins us from Las Vegas, along with Alan Dershowitz in New York. He's the
Alan Dershowitz, the leftist attorney who supported left causes for quite some time. And now he's weighing in on this judge, Judge Ellis.
author of the new book, Trumped Up: How the Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Great to see both of you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Professor Dershowitz, Judge Ellis, you know him well, I know him well. From a long time ago when I was a litigator, he's an incredibly talented judge. He pretty much calls balls and strikes. 77 years old, senior judge on the Eastern District. He just laid into the special counsel's office. He's cantankerous. He's known for that, too.
Cantankerous.
But he laid into him. There was one quote that I especially want to raise here. He said, "I don't see what relationship this indictment has against Manafort with anything the special counsel is authorized to investigate. It's unlikely you're going to persuade me the special counsel has this unfettered power to do whatever he wants."
Look, every criminal lawyer I know, every experienced lawyer has known from the beginning what's going on. They're going after people like Manafort and Flynn and Cohen, not because they have any interest in any of them. They just...
This is from Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz.
Want to flip them. They want to make them not only sing, but as the judge put it in his
listen to this
statement, maybe even make them compose. You know, I think I came up with that phrase, composing instead of singing. The judge was just saying what we all have known right from
That's some funny shit.
the beginning. The only difference between this judge and other judges is this judge is completely and totally honest. He calls it the way he sees it. He's absolutely right. This is what's been going on. The amazing thing is that he called them on it. He said to prosecutors, essentially, you can't do that if you're a special counsel. You have to go after directly the evidence that's within your mandate. You can't be finding people, creating or exaggerating or coming up with crimes, not in order to get those people, but in order to squeeze them and get them to sing and compose. It's about time a judge honestly looked at the situation and assessed it. You and I have been talking about this now for months. Yep. We shouldn't be surprised, but it's surprising that and refreshing that a federal judge would say that. It also vindicates one other point I made. Why did Mueller take this case out of Virginia? And
listen to this. Listen to this. You want to talk about insight from somebody that does know inside baseball? Check this out.
Try to put it in Washington, D.C., because he knows that he would get more positive judges, more positive jurors in the District of Columbia than he would get in Virginia. In Virginia, he's going to get judges like this who are straight. In D.C., he's going to get
Amy Berman
judges and
Jackson.
jurors who are...
Okay, now remember, he's talking about this. Judge T.S. Eliot III, the senior judge, is in fact in Virginia, and it's not in D.C. The Paul Manafort case is not in D.C. It's in Virginia, and it's come before this judge.
Much, much more anti-Trump. And so clearly that was judge shopping, jury shopping. When I said that, I was called a racist. I was condemned. Congressmen condemn me. Professors condemn me. But I think this opinion vindicates what I've been saying for a long, long time.
Yep, quite amazing.
Scott, he has. We do have another aspect of the case that's still in D.C. I think we might have just lost Scott there. That is in D.C. and
Right.
and when we get him back, let me know. And it's Amy Berman Jackson, Professor Dershowitz, who is a Obama appointee. And so she still hasn't ruled on the motion to dismiss. But these banking transactions go back to 2004 and 2007. And so Dreeben tries to argue today, saying, well, no, this is within the scope of the investigation.
And we're going to talk about that, too. The underhanded dealings by the Mueller consortium. Maybe I should call them a cartel.
And he said, I'll be the judge of that. He's like, I don't think so. I'll be the judge of that. So 2004, 2007, an investigation that began in 2014, a professor was somehow just looped into the Mueller investigation. It is ridiculous. It's so patently obvious from the very...
Meaning that Mueller thinks that he can do anything he wants to, that he has a mandate, and that nobody's going to touch him. No one is going to touch him, so he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Very beginning, you were way ahead of the curve on it.
Well, no, and it's so important because what they're doing to these people like Manafort and Flynn and Cohen could happen to any of us if we happen to be collateral damage. If you know somebody who they're going after, they're going to find something on you. They're going to squeeze you. This is something that has plagued the American justice.
I'm going to change things around a little bit. I was going to go into the FBI after this. Before I get to the FBI, and I may not get to it because I've only got about a half hour left, I want to show you how one guy who is a peripheral player, not even a semi-remote player in this political thing, has had his entire life ruined because he was simply associated with Donald Trump. And they took him down to nothing and emptied his pockets and ruined his life.
System for many decades. Look, if they do it to get the mafia, maybe it's understandable. If they do it to get terrorists, maybe it's understandable. But to do it to get an elected president of the United States, somebody who I voted against, but who's the elected president of the United States, to use that tactic, the mafia terrorist tactic of squeezing people and making them testify and making them sing and making them compose, endangers the civil liberties of all Americans.
It does. But I submit that everybody who is ensconced in getting Donald Trump, I said it last year and I said the year before that, I think that eventually I will be able to make a very good case that all of those people involved in that would make a really good RICO.
Let's look at what President Trump said today after he heard about
because I think this is a soft coup. I think it's been a soft coup, and it's a continuing soft coup. Worse than Watergate? Oh, I don't think we've found out half of the crap that we're going to find out. The veritable tip of the iceberg. More is coming.
Continuing conversation about whether he should speak. to a grand jury or be interviewed by Mueller. He made these comments.
Mueller.
I would love to speak. I would love to go. Nothing I want to do more because we did nothing wrong. I have to find that we're going to be treated fairly because everybody sees it now, and it is a pure witch hunt.
Now, if you don't think, by the way, that if people can do this to the President of the United States, the topmost politician in the entire nation, you think that the focus of your government cannot be brought to bear on you and that you cannot be ruined? Well, like I say, do I ever have a story on that? So first I got to ask you, first I have to tell you, who is this U.S. District Judge, Thomas Selby Ellis III? He happens to be a 78-year-old, by the way. Happy birthday, Judge Ellis, yesterday. Now he's 78. A 78-year-old senior U.S. judge assigned to the Eastern District of Virginia. He's a Reagan appointee in he's almost as old as I am. In 1987, he was born in Bogota, Colombia. He graduated from Princeton with a BA in engineering. He subsequently served in the U.S. Navy as an aviator, and he took his J.D. magna cum laude from Harvard in 1969. Judge Ellis has presided over cases like the American Taliban. You guys might remember that. John Walker Lind, Espionage Act cases, Khalid El Masri, and now the Paul Manafort case. In 3 words, Ellis.
Bueller.
Ellis has seen it all.
Bueller.
So, continuing.
Bueller.
Further, Ellis demanded to see the unredacted scope memo. Now, what does that mean? That's the scope. What is Mueller's scope of his investigation? This judge wanted to see it. It's a document outlining the scope of the special counsel's Russia probe that congressional Republicans have also sought. By the way, now it's been about a week and a half or so, I think, since this judge said that he wants to see it. And by the way, when he said he wants to see it, he's given them 2 weeks to come back and proffer it to him. Oh my gosh, I'm over time because boy did I get excited. It's been a great show tonight. I've had a great time here tonight. So I got to go to a break and I'm late. Damn me. No, I'm not putting a quarter in the hat for that one, WD, okay? Nope, not doing it for that one.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplainstalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for, a good, for the last 3 years. And finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Final segment. I like this one too. It's a good bit of music. We were talking about Bob Mueller and his dressing down by a judge, Thomas Selby Ellis III, in a Virginia court. By the way, the hearing where Manafort's team fought to dismiss an 18-count indictment on tax and bank fraud-related charges took a confrontational turn as it was revealed that at least some of the information in the investigation derived from an earlier Justice Department probe in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia. Manafort's attorneys argue the special counsel does not have the power to indict him on the charges they've brought and seem to find a sympathetic ear with Judge Ellis, as we heard earlier by Alan Dershowitz. So, damn the judge for asking a particularly logical and pointed question. The Reagan-appointed judge asked Mueller's team where they got the authority to indict Manafort on alleged crimes dating as far back as 2005. We don't want anyone with unfettered power, he said. He summed up the argument of the special counsel's office as, we said this is what the investigation was about, but we're not going to be bound by it, and we weren't really telling the truth in that May 17th letter in the first place, appointing a special counsel. Then there was an article from the Federalist, and the article went like this: Why Robert Mueller is the clown prince of federal law enforcement. As we entered the second year of Robert Mueller's sprawling investigation, Hanlon's razor teaches us to never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity, which is a concept I haven't even
I didn't see that one coming. Whatever one may say about Washington, D.C., it's never been accused of being a meritocracy. Rather, it's always been a place where people trade on connections. Until President Obama came into town and shook things up a bit. For centuries, our federal government was mostly overseen by a bipartisan old guard of WASP privilege. Okay, so hang on, because the trip right now is going to get bouncy a little bit. If anything, the story of Robert Swan. Okay, who would name their male child and give him a middle name of Swan? S-W-A-N-N. The story of Robert Swan Mueller III reads like a parody of that privilege. He was born to a wealthy DuPont executive. Mueller was sent off to St. Paul's, the elite New Hampshire boarding school, where he was John Kerry's lacrosse captain. Therefore, before matriculating at Princeton, New York University, and the University of Virginia. In 1966, he married Anne Cabell Standish, an alumnus of Miss Porter's Finishing School in Farmingham, Connecticut, and Sarah Lawrence College. To his credit, Mueller did volunteer post-college with the Marines, and he did serve in Vietnam. So, excuse me just for a second. So if you're wondering if there's like the proverbial time bomb in here somewhere, you're not really going to wonder anymore. As Alan Dershowitz recalled on the Cats Roundtable podcast, Mueller is the guy who kept 4 innocent people. Listen to this, and remember, you may remember this. Mueller is the guy who kept 4 innocent people in prison for many years in order to protect the cover of Whitey Bulger as an FBI informer. And that's regarded in Boston as one of the great scandals of modern judicial history. And Mueller was right in the center of it. So anybody remember, by the way, that concurrently, during that same time, FBI agent John Connolly was providing information to Whitey Bulger? Mueller?
Bueller.
Mueller?
Bueller.
Mueller?
Bueller.
Wait.
Bueller.
Are we finding out that Bobby Swan Mueller is not the idyllic beacon of goodness, light, and truth? Okay. Anybody remember this as well? After the 9/11 attacks, letters with anthrax, okay, they were mailed to various media outlets in the offices of 2 U.S. senators. They ended up killing 5 and infecting 17 others. Coming as soon as it did after 9/11, hysteria naturally ensued. This was Mueller's first test as FBI director. The results weren't pretty. As Molly Hemingway noted, Mueller completely botched the anthrax killer case, wasting more than $100 million in taxpayer dollars, destroying the lives of multiple suspects, and chasing bad leads using bad methods. Does that fall into the category of dirty little secrets and dirty little lies? Okay. I thought that leftist Democrats in the American media maggots insisted and continue to insist that all our beloved alphabet agencies are completely unbiased and apolitical, right? And you notice, by the way, that I failed to throw the word competent in there as well. So there's more to Mueller. There really is. Then there was this little bit of frippery from this past Monday's TheHill.com. Wait for it. Wait for it. Mueller may have a conflict, and it leads directly to a Russian oligarch. Wait. Russian oligarch. Isn't that something that we've accused Donald John Trump of? So, Mueller linked to a Russian oligarch? Well, I guess I did have a producer, at least very briefly. Special Counsel Robert Mueller has withstood relentless political attacks, many distorting the record of distinguished government service. Special Counsel Robert Mueller, but there's one episode. Even Mueller's former law enforcement comrades and independent ethicists acknowledge raises legitimate legal issues and a possible conflict of interest in his overseeing the Russian election probe in 2009. When Mueller ran the FBI, the Bureau asked Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska to spend millions of his own dollars funding an FBI-supervised operation to rescue a retired FBI agent, Robert Levinson, captured in Iran while working for the CIA in 2007. Mueller working for a Russian oligarch now? Oh, hold up on that car wash there, cowboys. Okay, it's being said that Mueller may have a Russian collusion connection instead of Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. Yes, that's the same Deripaska who has surfaced in Mueller's current investigation and who was recently sanctioned by the Trump administration. Let's see. Helping Mueller then, hurting him now. I'm asking if this is perhaps just a wee bit of like smegmatized Mark I Model 1 conflict of interest here. Hello? But hang on to your girdle. All right, it gets better. One agent who helped court Deripaska was Andrew McCabe. See how this kind of links in? One agent who helped court Deripaska, the Russian oligarch, was Andy McCabe, the recently fired FBI deputy director who played a seminal role in starting the Trump-Russia case. Multiple sources confirm. So why should anybody care about this guy named Oleg Deripaska? And the article continues, two reasons. First, as the FBI prepared to get authority to surveil figures on Trump's campaign team, did it disclose to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court, that one of the past Russian sources waved them off of the notion of Trump-Russia collusion. Second, the U.S. government in April imposed sanctions on Deripaska, one of several prominent Russians targeted to punish Vladimir Putin, using the same sort of allegations that the state used from 2006 to 2009. Yet between these two episodes, Deripaska seemed good enough for the FBI to ask him to fund that multi-million-dollar rescue mission and to seek his help as a sensitive political investigation and to allow him into the country 8 times. As Scooby-Doo says, ruh-roh. Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz told me he believes Mueller has a conflict of interest because his FBI previously accepted financial help from a Russian, that is, at the very least, a witness in the current probe. The real question becomes whether it was proper to leave Deripaska out of the Manafort indictment and whether that omission was to avoid the kind of transparency that is really required by law, Dershowitz said. You see how it all interweaves together? Melanie Sloan, a former Clinton Justice Department lawyer and longtime ethics watchdog, told me a far more significant issue is whether the earlier FBI operation was even legal. It's possible the Bureau's arrangement with Mr. Deripaska violated the Anti-Deficiency Act, which prohibits the government from accepting voluntary services. Okay, is this, again, perhaps a little bit too much inside baseball for you? I should care to remind everybody, we are a nation of laws. George Washington University constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley agreed. If the operation with Deripaska contravened federal law, this figure could be viewed as a potential embarrassment for Mueller. The question is whether he could implicate Mueller in an impropriety. So then, despite the best wishes of Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots, in the meantime, the episode highlights an oft-forgotten truism. The cat-and-mouse maneuvers between Moscow and Washington are often portrayed in black and white terms, but the truth is the relationship is enveloped in many shades of gray. So, Here's, I think, might not get to the one other article that I wanted to get to about somebody's life being destroyed, but wait, hey, there's always Thursday, and I could revisit this on Thursday because I can't pass up this article. This is one from thehill.com, and it poses this. How about a few questions for Robert Mueller himself? This is by a guy named Mark Penn. Robert Mueller has plenty of questions for President Trump, and maybe he'll get to ask them. Most of them seem like perjury traps. Thank you. That's exactly what they're going to be, and that's exactly how they're going to be crafted as perjury traps for Donald Trump. And I still believe firmly he should not sit down with anyone involved with Robert Mueller. Most of them seemed like perjury traps rather than real questions for the president, and surprisingly, they contain very little that wasn't in the public domain through prior leaks. In other words, the president isn't a target because they have nothing implicating him, and so they want to use the interview to create such material. Let that sink in. That's precisely what the Mueller team wants. Something salacious because they can't find it yet. But the conduct of the investigation by the special counsel and his team have raised a lot of questions in its foundation. Conflicts of interest, fairness, and methods. Most of the public, based on the last Harvard COPS Harris poll, supports Robert Mueller going forward with his investigation. But I have my own thoughts on that. Well, stop. Let me interject my own thoughts. I don't think Robert Mueller should be stopped. I think Robert Mueller should continue on with his investigation because, if for no other reason than this very salient point, look at all the stuff that we're finding out that otherwise we would not have known about Robert Mueller and about the investigation and how deep it goes into the deep state itself. So, no, don't stop. Let it go. It will find its own closure of its own accord and in its own good due time. And I don't think it's going to be pretty, and it won't be happy for the Robert Mueller fishing expedition Mark 1, Model 1 investigation at this point. They've raised a lot of questions about its foundation, conflicts of interest. The poll going forward said that Robert Mueller should. Perjury trap? Yeah, definitely. Every question aimed at Donald Trump is going to be a perjury trap, period, end of statement. The perjury trap of perjury traps in modern history, I would submit to you. So these are just a few questions from Penn's article. And let me go down a little bit here. What does he have? He has 6 questions, and I think I have enough time to go over these questions before we leave for the night. The first question is for Robert Mueller. When you interviewed for FBI director with President Trump, and he did, had you any conversations with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, FBI Director James Comey, or any other current or former officials of the U.S. government about serving as a special counsel? In other words, was it known prior? Didn't you consider going forward with the interview or being rejected as FBI Director to create the appearance of conflict? Number 2, when you picked your team, what was going through your mind when you picked 0 donors to the Trump campaign and hired many Democratic donors, supporters of the defiant actions of Sally Yates, who at the time was Deputy Attorney General, and prosecutors who had been overturned for misconduct? What were you thinking in building a team with documented biases? Number 3, when you were shown the text messages of FBI officials Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, why did you reassign them and not fire them for compromising the investigation with obvious animus and multiple violations of procedure and policy? Why did you conceal from Congress the reasons for their firing for 5 months? And did you discard any of their work as required by the fruits of a poisonous tree doctrine? Bobby? 4, what were your personal contacts with Rod Rosenstein and James Comey during the investigation as special counsel, and before that as a private attorney? Would you be considered a friend of James Comey? Would that personal relationship not disqualify you as prosecutor on this case under Justice Department guidelines? 5, doesn't the fact that Rod Rosenstein wrote a memo urging the firing of James Comey and therefore is a witness to key events you are reviewing disqualify him as your supervisor under Justice Department guidelines? Captain Obvious is over there. He's nodding his head, as I knew he would. 6, did you see in advance any of the text of the book by James Comey or have any conversations related to its contents? Are you reviewing the contradictory statements made by James Comey on key issues for possible perjury, for referral, for perjury? Any of that? Okay, so you get my gist. There's a hell of a lot more questions to be answered. And so, I don't know, maybe this does kind of reek of Captain Obvious, but am I the only one that's starting to think this whole special counsel thing kind of stinks? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I have 5 minutes. Let me see. I might have time then to go into this story. That's almost... Maxine Waters is the gift that keeps on giving. Here's a guy, and I'm going to go through this entire story, and if that means that I go into overtime a little bit, oh well, so be it. There's nobody on after me anyway. Here's a guy that was destroyed for politics. And like I told you earlier, this is a guy that's on the periphery. He's not a central player at all. And this is going to become the new normal in the future, destroyed for politics, because, after all, Democrats and leftists and the deep state and the American media maggots are beginning to realize, destroy people because it works. You want to destroy conservatives? Hey, all you got to do is put a lawsuit. Just lay a big old lawsuit on them. It's immaterial if it's valid or not. You force them into bankruptcy as they just try to do nothing but defend themselves. Here's a story from the UK Daily Mail. I frequently get all sorts of good stories from the UK Daily Mail. God damn you to hell. Former Trump campaign consultant explodes at Democrat Senate aides after he loses his house to legal fees in witch hunt congressional Russia probe. Former Trump campaign advisor. Now that's all this guy is, a Trump campaign advisor. Michael Caputo says he spent $125,000 on lawyers to comply just with the demands of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He lived in Russia for 2 decades, but insists he knows nothing about any links between Trump's campaign and the Kremlin. He delivered a lengthy rebuke to Senate aides Tuesday, saying, God damn you to hell for making him sell his house and jeopardizing his children's future. I want to know who cost us so much money, who crushed our kids, who forced us out of our home, all because you lost an election, he told Democrats. Caputo also says Democrat aides are helping a former committee staffer who is continuing to add to the salacious anti-Trump dirty dossier. So let's listen in a little bit as Michael Caputo speaks to Tucker Carlson of Tucker Carlson Tonight.
Thanks for inviting me.
So you've been interviewed by the investigation, the Mueller investigation, is that correct?
Yes, today at noon I spent 3 hours with investigators in the special counsel's office.
What did you learn?
I learned they're still looking at Russian collusion. They're still looking for it. While I wouldn't be asked about charges of obstruction or asked about financial crimes, I was there during the time when they believed that Russian collusion was initiated. That would be
okay. Grok that concept. All he was present. That's all it took for him to lose his house, his children's future. That's all it took. He was a sideline. He wasn't even close to being anything roughly like a main player at all.
Be the only thing that they would ask me about. That certainly is the only thing we talked about.
That's not the only thing you talked about.
No, that is the only thing we talked about. In my mind, if anybody thinks that Russian collusion is off the table, they haven't visited with the Mueller team.
Was there Russian collusion?
Of course not. I mean, I think that they're looking down the avenues of all the evidence that they're putting together. I'll tell you, they know more about the Trump campaign than anybody that worked there. And they know more about what I did in 2016 than I do myself.
Well, I hope so.
They really do.
They spent a lot of money and a lot of time looking at
$20 million, and they still have no Russian collusion. And that goes back to the scope memo that no one is going to release because apparently you can't read, nor can the House Intelligence Committee read about just what is the scope of Robert Mueller. Meaning, sub rosa, reading between the lines, the scope is there is no fucking scope.
They have.
So what are they looking at specifically? Like, what did you learn? Where do they think the collusion took place?
It's unlimited.
I don't really want to interfere with the investigation. I was warned about that.
They warned you not to talk about it.
Well, they warned me to be careful about interfering with
exercising your freedom of speech.
Well,
they're not for that, is that right?
I get that, but my attorneys...
I get that. It's the center of our country.
I get that, but I'm just saying my attorneys also asked me to be careful about this, but I can tell you they're looking...
Meaning, translated, I'm out of money. I have no more... my means, my ways and means of even defending myself in anything further are done. Those days are over. I'm drained. I'm dry.
They're threatening and intimidating you, basically, it sounds like.
I'm not going to be friending them on Facebook today, if that's what you're asking. I don't find them to be very friendly people. What's it like to live in a country
where, having not been charged or convicted of any crime, a prosecutor can threaten you to shut up in public?
It's not nice, but I can tell you that it's nothing compared to the $125,000 in legal bills that I've stacked up for nothing. It's nothing compared to the death threats that my family and I are getting. It's nothing compared to the piece of a sniper rifle that came in the middle of my wife last month. It's nothing compared to the way that they're
listen to this
trashing my family. What's happening to me and my family is happening to many other people in this investigation, and I'm just a witness.
And do you think the people that are threatening him have anything to do with folks on the right? Fuck no.
I can't imagine if somebody's a subject or a target what they're going to go through. But I can tell you this.
Wait, can I just back up for one sec? Since you just spoke to the investigators today, when they suggested, in the way that the mafia suggests, maybe you shouldn't do that. What do you think the penalty would be if you ignored that suggestion?
I don't think there would be any penalty, but I think I might be called back for a little visit. And every time I come to Washington for this bogus investigation.
Listen. This is the deal killer, and this is the point. They know it. The Mueller investigators, they know this. This is how you destroy people.
Whether it's the Senate, the House, or whatever, I get to pay another 25 grand.
So they just bankrupt you. That's no big deal.
Not just me. I think other people, too. I mean, a tin cup isn't a good look, but I've had to open a GoFundMe page. I mean, I certainly didn't sign up for this when I went to work for the Trump campaign, and I will never...
He was nothing more than a campaign consultant.
Never, ever work on another Republican campaign for as long as I live.
Listen to that. He will never work on another Republican campaign as long as he lives. That's called a chilling effect. The attorney phrase for that is a chilling effect, and that's exactly, precisely what the deep state, the swamp in D.C., leftists, the Democrats, the American media maggots, that's what they want. To eliminate the GOP and conservatives, particularly conservatives, wholesale. And if they can do that by bankrupting your ass, and all they have to do is drop a little subpoena on you $20K later just to defend yourself, that's the point.
I mean, and I think that's part of this, Tucker. I think this is a punishment strategy.
Punishment.
I think they want to destroy the president.
Destroy the president.
They want to destroy his family. They want to destroy his businesses. They want to destroy his friends so that no billionaire in, let's say, 15 years wakes up and tells his wife, you know what, the country's broken and only I can fix it. His wife will say, are you crazy? Did you see what happened to Donald Trump and everybody around him?
Bingo.
That's what this is about.
So they've so intimidated you, and again, they're not charging you with anything. There's no allegation that you committed a crime. But they've so intimidated you that you can't talk about your conversation on this show right now, and you're retiring from campaign politics forever.
I'm never going to work on a Republican campaign again unless somebody legally indemnifies me. Clearly, these lawsuits after the fact are the...
Well, that can't be done. That can't be done. Indemnification doesn't work.
New Democratic strategy: when you lose, you still win. I don't think anybody should work on a Republican campaign again unless they're legally indemnified. I think if you do, you're crazy. My legal fees are going to be at least $125,000. That's more than I make in a year. That's more than where I live in East Aurora, New York. That's more than most people in my town make. And I don't know how we're going to pay that off, me and my family. But that's Washington money. That's New York money.
Well, it's disgusting.
Well, I can tell you this, Tucker.
We're almost out of time.
They're looking at WikiLeaks. They're looking at Guccifer. They're looking at DC leaks. Everything that you see in the media that's been leaked out there, that's certainly what they're looking at. And I think they're pretty focused on this.
It's unbelievable. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's not.
It's been 7 months, but new information is out just tonight.
It's not unbelievable. It's completely believable. End of statement. And that's the exact point. The point is to crush you and punish you so so bottom line resolutely that you wouldn't dare to do anything like that again. Deep state swamp at work. Destroy people for politics. Crush them like little bugs. Oh, come on. You were doing so well. I really need a producer. Okay, let's do this again. Let's promise. Let's pretend that I actually have a radio show and I'm trying to wrap it up, okay? Let's pretend like that just for a second. And I can. I don't know about you, but I enjoyed the hell out of this show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you ever so kindly for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can contact me and find me on Twitter at BZepp, on my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net, and you can send me hate mail, bz@shrmedia.com. My original music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at ReverbNation.com. Promotional consideration by the Boeing Corporation. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And, of course, by Pratt & Whitney Engines, producing thrust you can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team contingent, on whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks to you, moreover, for being here, listening live, being in chat, listening in podcast. Sackheads Against Tyranny tomorrow night. I return Thursday night. God bless. Take care. You be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
night, Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.